Horror gaming is like no other medium for the genre. TV and movies just don't compare. You are not just watching the story play out, you are living it. Your choices decide whether a character lives or dies. If done right, it can be an immersive, nail-biting, shit-the-bed experience.
You know you did it, fess up! I did not poop the bed!
But back in the golden days of the Xbox 360, good horror games were extremely scarce, as the Resident Evil series leaned into over-the-top boulder-punching action, and the Silent Hill series lost its identity and scare factor with each entry. While the console did receive some notable additions such as Dead Space, many more games sadly did not get the same praise and got overlooked by many. So on episode 2 of our Hidden Gems, we will be taking a look at some of the most ghoulish, ghastly, and gory games to ever grace the console. And if you enjoy our content and enjoy the Hidden Gem series and would like to help the channel grow, then consider quickly giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel.
There's something wrong with this place.
He wants out!
This is my will.
The Evil Within is brought to us by Shinji Mikami, one of the all-time greats of horror gaming. The game is a third-person survival title that sees you take control of a police detective who, upon investigating a mass murder at a mental hospital, is thrown into a world of nightmarish monsters and experiments. The Evil Within is on this list for quite a few reasons. Not only does it include some truly imaginative and disturbing creatures that will definitely haunt your dreams when you finish playing, it also smartly combines stealth and action, forcing you to always be on your feet, as sometimes it is better to run and hide than to stand and fight. The game also boasts some incredible environmental storytelling. Every flipped desk, broken glass, or bullet hole tells its own twisted tale and truly immerses you into the game's world. Add the fact the game itself is one massive love letter to all other horror media, with little nods to the likes of Grudge, Saw, and even Seven. Just make The Evil Within one of my favourite survival horror titles of all time.
There's an old story, something about a killer in a raincoat who appears on rainy nights.
Deadly Premonition is the equivalent of gaming Marmite. You're either gonna love it or you're going to hate it, as this is the kind of game that's so bad that it's actually good. If you can see around the game's rough edges, you will find one of the most unique and absurd horror titles on the Xbox 360. The game honestly feels like an acid trip, full of quirky characters, absurd dialogue, and some genuine scares. In the game you play as FBI agent Francis Morgan, but you can call him York.
Please call me York. It's what everyone calls me.
As he investigates the murder of a woman in the town of Greenvale, one of the few locations in gaming that feels like a fully lived in and realized world, as all the residents go about their daily lives while you conduct your investigation. An investigation that soon gets rather creepy as you encounter some ghostly spirits that shamble and moan in a ridiculously eerie and disturbing way. Some of the chase sequences in Deadly Premonition are really intense and terrifying and left my heart jumping out of my chest quite a few times. Deadly Premonition is like no other game you will ever play, constantly changing up its gameplay, leaving the player to never know what to expect next. And let's not forget about the amazing soundtrack. You will be whistling its theme song long after you've stopped playing. Original, quirky, with some genuine terror. If you want a horror game that feels fresh, then don't judge a book by its cover, as Deadly Premonition should stab that itch.
Times we must purge things from this world because they should not exist.
Alan Wake is truly unique, mixing gameplay and narrative seamlessly. In the game, you play as Alan Wake, who travels with his wife to Bright Falls to try and cure himself of his writer's block. Then shit goes down, his wife is kidnapped, and it's up to you and Alan to find out what's going on, recover his memory, and find his wife. Something that's easier said than done when most of the town and its residents have been taken over by the dark presence. Something that can only be hurt by light, which leads to the gameplay involving you using everything from flashlights, torches, and even flare guns to take out everything that stands in your way. Alan Wake has incredible gameplay and a captivating story that's presented in an episodic format, making you feel like you are part of a horror TV series. Alan Wake is an experience like no other.
Hello, Detective Tap. Hello. Do you want to play a game?
Yeah, well obviously, that's why you're watching this list, and honestly, I can't recommend Saw the video game enough, especially if you're a fan of the movies. Everything is lovingly created here, and just like the movies, the game is fittingly gruesome with all the traps, gore, and blood that you would expect from the franchise. The game is a third-person survival title that sees you play as David from the first movie. He tries to survive a booby-trapped insane asylum with a shotgun collar attached to his neck while trying to solve puzzles and save other victims of Jigsaw's twisted games. The gameplay is actually really solid, and the whole thing is carried by a pretty decent story that is woven into the franchise's lore. Ignore the reviews, as Saw the video game is a bloody good time.
Fear is a basic human emotion. What frightens you more? The evil that you know? Or the evil that you don't know?
Not a hidden gem to some, you would be surprised how many people never picked up this game or just brushed it off. And that's a damn shame, as F.E.A.R is not only one of the finest FPS titles of all time, it's also genuinely scary. And the fear, no pun intended, comes from the entity known as Alma, a ghostly little girl that torments you throughout the game. F.E.A.R combines its all-out action and destructive shooting with suspenseful horror in a way that makes you feel like an absolute god one minute, then a scared little boy the next. The game's dread is also intensified by an incredibly atmospheric soundtrack. It all leads to F.E.A.R being incredibly fun and intensely scary at the same time.
Do you know the true meaning of fear?
Before I tag in the other host of the show for his horror hidden gem pick, I want to give an honourable little mention to Limbo. The game may not look all that scary, but something about the not knowing what's going on and the lack of music just makes you feel uneasy. The game is a side-scrolling platformer where you must traverse eerie levels and use the environment to survive traps and creatures that are out to get you. Don't let the visuals put you off, as Limbo is a super atmospheric little gem.
Clive Barker's Jericho is a horror first-person shooter video game, produced and written by Clive Barker. Jericho sees you take control of a squad called Jericho, whose mission is to prevent the Firstborn being unleashed upon humankind once again. With Jericho's unique gameplay style, which allows you to switch character mid-mission / fight, which makes for a fun experience, because every character has a different playstyle and unique special ability. but it definitely comes in handy when you're trying to face the demons, the ghosts, and all the weird and twisted other enemies that you have to face throughout the campaign. The thing I loved most about this game is that it wasn't like all the other shoot 'em up games that I've played. It brought something different to the table and took risks, which I'd love to see more game developers do.
We've been waiting an eternity for you.
For the last entry on the list, we will be calling on an absolute hidden gem of a YouTuber. Gubtodi is a wordsmith that intelligently breaks down some of the most obscure movies that you probably missed. So after watching this video, make sure you head over to his channel and check out his content. I've invited him on today's show to give an in-depth breakdown of one of the best but most forgotten horror hidden gems on the Xbox 360. Welcome to the channel.
The Bureau will do no good. Someone else killed those policemen. Shot with your weapon, and you will be blamed for their deaths.
Hello everyone, and hey Rob, thanks for having me on. When you reached out to me that you were making a sequel video to your hidden gems on the Xbox 360, I couldn't have you put that video out and not talk about Condemned Criminal Origins. Now if you've played this game, you will immediately know why it's on this list. If you've not, let me fill you in a little bit here. This is a dark psychological horror. This came out in 2005. It is old, this game, and I played it a couple of years ago and it still holds up for everything I remembered it for. You're playing as Ethan Thomas. You're an SCU detective and you're investigating a serial killer. Now to really set this game up, you're coming into one of his crime scenes. However, things go a little bit of awry, you lose your weapon, and the serial killer runs off and kills your fellow colleagues with it. So now you're being framed for murder. So not only are you on the run from the police during this entire game, you're also on the run from psychopaths, serial killers, thugs, drug addicts, just people you want to avoid in these situations. Now why this game is so memorable is the atmosphere it sets up throughout it. This game has such a good array of locations you go into. Don't get me wrong, most of them are abandoned for the obvious reasons, but you've got schools, you've got apartment complexes, you go into the sewers as well in this game, and you're in an apartment store. But the combat is what sells this for me. Now you can only carry one weapon in this game, which sounds like a negative. However, guns and ammunition in this game are far and few between, so you're relying on your melee weapons, and this is where the game, I think, really just propels itself. You feel every hit in this game. It hits hard, and depending on the weapon you've got, you're swinging it differently as well, which is a beautiful touch. And even the weapon choice, they change based on the location. You can get poles off the walls in the sewers and they've got the valves on them, or the apartment store, it's off of clothing racks. They change. And the rating scale of what weapon's better is very simply put, it's got speed and it's got power, and you go with your playstyle. And as for the enemies, it always feels like an even battle. If you do have a gun, chances are they do in that scenario. And even if you don't, those melees, they've all got weapons themselves and you go back and forth. There's no block indicators in this game, you just need to learn the timings very well. And it will force you to do it because you will die a lot if you don't in this game. Other than that, you've got a taser, which is good for a quick stun, but its recharge, you're not going to be using it often. It's not going to be the base of your battle, so you've got to learn fast. Out of that, the game never forgets that you're an SCU agent, so although you're on the run trying to hunt down this serial killer, the only person that believes you're innocent is the forensic scientist on the other end of the phone. So whilst you've still got all your tools and gadgets to investigate, you continue with the case, and you will send all your data onto her, and she will corroborate it, she'll confirm it, and she'll look into it for you. And she is there for you throughout this whole experience. So you never truly feel alone, but when she's not on the phone and you're navigating these dark, dank buildings, you don't want to be there. And this is the game that absolutely made me terrified of mannequins. I had no issue with mannequins until this game. There is a certain scene where, no, not a fan anymore. Don't like them, they are creepy, and I will avoid them in games at all costs. So this is one of those games that when you look it up, it looks like it's got really good reviews, and it does. But when you talk to people about it, it's not often you meet someone that's played the game. And I'll tell you now, I've never met someone that has played it who didn't enjoy it. And I would highly recommend this to anyone who is looking for a game at the weekend, something for a scare, and something that was going to rile them up. Condemned Criminal Origins, if you have not played it, 100% give it a shot. I really appreciate you, Rob, reaching out just to get my input on a game that I thought was a hidden gem for the Xbox 360, and I couldn't not mention this one. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. What other horror hidden gems do you think deserve to make the list? Let us know in the comments. If you are still here, be sure to hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss next week's episode. Until next time, you guys stay tipsy.